G'day y'all, it's The Edward Show. I'm your host, Edward Fox, and together we're going to dive into the lives and stories of extraordinary individuals I meet from every corner of our globe. G'day viewers and listeners, it's Ed Fox with The Edward Show. I guess I should say g'day y'all, because that's in the title. G'day y'all, it's The Edward Show. And I have a very special guest here today. Joe, I think you've been on maybe the Edward and Paul show, the wake-up call.
Yes, I have been. Yes,
Right.
that was
And
quite a while ago.
It was quite a while ago, so I was excited that you reached out and that you were willing to come on to my show. So, folks, for those of you that don't know, Joe has his own podcast. And what do you call? Are you just revamping the name of that podcast? You're working on it, right?
That's correct. I'm working on a new name. So the new name is going to be this, or very similar to this, Entrepreneur Journeys.
I like that. Entrepreneur Journeys. That's
Right.
something I'd listen to. You've already hooked me with the name, but I did like your jam sessions before. So give us a short bio about yourself.
Oh my gosh. Okay. It's short. After graduating college with a degree in business, I went to work where I wanted to be, doing what I wanted to do, where I wanted to do it. And I got an offer to go to Italy to be the eyes on the ground. See, a fellow had lost his eyes on the ground for his Italian business and needed someone there to look after his own interests. So it was a 2-year project. And I said, yeah, why not? I was out of school for 5 months. I didn't have a girlfriend, didn't have a car. I said, okay, let's go. And that ended up being 18 years. Wow. It took me a little while to figure out what I was supposed to be doing there, but eventually I became the sales director in Italy. And when the company wanted to expand to South America, they asked me to go to South America. So I moved to Brazil. I got married to an Italian, moved to Brazil, had 2 children in Brazil, stayed there for 9 years. Wow. And it's so exciting. I got involved with speaking in public, and I traveled the country speaking at seminars and conventions, eventually in Portuguese. So I was speaking from stage in Portuguese. And then I kind of got bored with it. The economy wiped me out twice, and I said, not a third time. So I moved back to Italy and I started a language school. I did a couple other things, had a language school, had a mountain bike tourism business for the summer. And that lasted about 4 years. And then I moved back to the US. Went to the coast of North Carolina, where I ran a number of businesses. One was a restaurant where I spent most of my time. We had 42 employees, 130 seats, full bar, sports bar, all that. That was so much fun, but exhausting.
Right.
And I needed to get out because of the lifestyle. And the lifestyle was fun and exciting, but after drinking 5 or 6 nights a week and going to bed at 3 a.m, I didn't think that was very sustainable.
How old were you at this point?
44.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So I didn't know what to do. And someone said, Joe, why don't you be a business coach? And I said, what's that? I didn't know what that was. And I looked into it. I said, yeah, that makes sense. I've had a lot of businesses in different cultures, different countries, different industries. And I said, sure, I can do that. So I enrolled in a business coaching course. And that was 13 months, hours and hours in that course. I was basically a full-time student for 13 months. And I came out and I started my business coaching business.
Your business coaching business. And is that where Apexable? How do you say that? What's the correct?
So I call it Apexable, but you can say apex able. So able to reach your apex.
Right. And that ties into another cool little journey you had with your dad, right?
Yeah. So, was a really fun thing. We were sitting at a bar, and a couple beers in. Now, this is where all inspiration happens. And he says to me, hey, Joe, if I climb Mount Kilimanjaro, will you come with me? I said, sure, of course. I didn't know if he was serious. We didn't know if we could do it. We started thinking, could we really do it? Climb Mount Kilimanjaro? We're not mountain climbers. And we found out that we could. And a year later, we were standing on the top of Mount Kilimanjaro, known as the roof of Africa. It's the tallest mountain in Africa. And it was a 9-day trek. So we slept in tents for 9 days. We went from a rainforest with monkeys and birds and all the way up to a snow-capped mountain in 7 days. And then it was 2 days to come back down.
Right.
Very exciting, very interesting, and very business related, from the idea, can we do it? Who's done it before? Who can we learn from? What do we need to acquire? What skills do we need to learn? What do we need to put in our pack? Who's going to help us? And it was just a lot of those things we ask when we're starting a business, right?
Right, exactly. Yep. Yep.
How long is it going to take? How uncomfortable is it going to be?
Yeah. So I've got all of our 3 kids have gone an entrepreneurial journey as well. And it's interesting right now. So we've got the oldest ones are 30-ish, 30. I don't know. Let's say they're 30. And they're doing coffee machine repair business, and that's doing a couple of $1 million in revenues, right? Now you got to try and figure out, well, why aren't we making as much profit as a service business should be making, right? Or oh, we're making more profit than a service business is making. What are we doing better? What are we doing differently? Or is our accounting messed up, right? So it's all of those sort of challenges. When you were doing your business, the middle kids are in the process of buying an ice cream shop, and the youngest kid, she is doing digital design, so helping me with podcasts and helping me with graphic design and all that sort of stuff. And so they're all at different areas in their entrepreneurial journey. What did you find during your business coaching that is there a number one question that just comes up all the time, or a top 3? What are they asking you?
You know, it does depend on the stage that they're in.
Right.
So I talk with people who just have an idea in their head, to people who have had a business for years and it's just kind of stagnated. It's just kind of plateaued, and they need more inspiration or more ideas to move it forward. Really, the number one question is, how can I reach my goals?
Right.
And then we talk about, well, what are your goals? What do you want to see? And if someone is just beginning a business, oftentimes there's a lot of misconceptions.
Right.
And we have to deal with that, right? What's it really like?
Yeah, exactly. So my kids buying the ice cream shop, they're like, we didn't think it'd be this hard. Really? I told you, you're there. You're there from when it opens to when it shuts. You're there when your employees call in. You're there when you don't feel good. You're there all the time. Yeah, but we didn't think you meant like all the time. But they are learning, and they actually are loving it. And I keep telling them, I said, look, before you sign those final papers, you have to decide. We're in tight, but it's better to run away now than to run away after you owe the SBA 400 grand, So what do you want to do? And they're like, no, we love it. We love it. We love it. We love it. Okay. Love it for 10 years. Love it for 10 years.
So one of the things I used to do is sell businesses. I worked as a business broker for a little while. And it is a process, and the due diligence needs to be done very, very well.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. And I, as you know, I'm more of a seat of the pants kind of guy. I'm a business starter. I like starting businesses. I like building businesses. I do not like maintaining businesses. That is not fun for me. I hire managers to maintain my businesses, and then I'll oversee them, but
Sure.
I like to keep building. So I'm always, that strategy for me worked great. So I think I should have got into trade shows, because I could go around the country setting up trade shows and doing events all the time. And I would never get tired of that, because I worked, you've heard of Pokemon, Magic the Gathering, maybe not.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, my children are about 30-ish too, so we were involved with all of that.
Right. Okay. So I used to run tournaments up and down the Midwest along 35. I've done 1,000 Pokemon Magic the Gathering tournaments, and was making about 100 grand a year doing that. Loved it until 2010, and the economy sort of tanked. 2008, 2010, and never returned to those levels for those games. And but you've got to find something, I think, that you're passionate about. I was talking to a young kid today, and maybe you would give him different advice than I gave him, but I said, he doesn't know what he wants to do, right? He knows he needs to be in business. He knows he wants to be a business owner. He wants to create generational wealth. Okay. He says, but I got no money. I said, oh, that doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. You don't need money to start a business. You need somebody's money. It doesn't have to be yours. But I said, write down all the things that you see that you could start something and solve their problem. Doesn't matter whether you're imitating or innovating. You're probably going to ramp up quicker if you imitate than if you innovate, because you've got to build all the processes and systems. I said, but think of a pooper scooper business. You go buy a bucket from Home Depot. You buy a lid because you don't want it falling all apart in your car and falling all over the place. And then you just go make up some flyers and you hand them out in your neighborhood. $10 a week. Hire me, I'll come scoop your poop for your dog. For each dog you have, $10 a week out in your backyard. I said, you could start that and then you could sell it. He said, well, when do I sell it? I said, you sell it whenever you want. All you got to do is have the process. You might have 10 customers paying you $10 a week. That's $100 a week. Right? I said, what do you want? You want a year's revenue? You want a month's revenue? How long proof of concept? Do you have a plan that shows the person that's going to buy it how to do it? Maybe you sell it for $400 and then you go out and binge drink on a Friday night down in Nashville. I don't know. Right. So things like that. It's different people are, like you say, are at different levels. So what have you got going on right now that you're excited about?
Well, I am excited about the podcast guesting success course that I just finished the pilot. I had a number of students and we went through how to get the best ROI for your podcast guesting experience and the time that you put in.
Right. Okay. Well, yeah, lay some of that on me. I'd love to hear it.
So, it's very easy to get on a podcast and just talk. We talk on Zoom all the time and people are very used to talking on Zoom. So what happens often is someone says, hey, you should be on a podcast, or they say, I've got a podcast, or my buddy Joe has a podcast. And they say, oh yeah, sure. What time? Okay. 2:00 on Friday. Sure. I'm there. And there's no preparation. What's the podcast about? Who's the audience? And that's it. You can start that way. That's fine if you want to start that way, but you're not going to get the ROI that you would get if you had a strategy.
Right.
If you had a strategy to get on the right podcast. Now, what's the right podcast? The podcast where your niche audience is listening. So where your niche market is listening to the podcast. If you help mompreneurs start a business and you get on a podcast that talks about using AI for audio perfection, you're just in the wrong place.
Right.
Right. So you want to be able to research the podcast that you're on and find the right podcast for your niche. So you're talking to the right people and you're offering the right thing as a call to action. So it's good to have one call to action. If you could have one call to action that was your primary call to action, that would be great. A lot of people have 2 or 3 or 4, sometimes more.
This would be sorry, go on.
No, go ahead. I was
going to say it'd be a good place to interject with one of your call to actions.
Yeah. So I have one website, one simple website where people can go and there are links to what I have going on and I can change that. That website is gapologist.com.
And that's GAPOLOGIST.com.
Right. And it's a small website. It's basically a mini website that has links to events, has links to my free giveaways, I've got links to social media accounts, things like that.
Right.
Right. So that is evergreen, Ed. That site will always be current. And that's why I can recommend people to that. If someone's listening to this podcast tomorrow, next year, or 10 years from now, Gapologist will be live. It's mine. I own it. I've been to call to actions. I've clicked on call to actions that were like lead pages or something like that. And the person was, at the time of the podcast, he was paying lead pages, whatever hundreds of dollars a month that is, right? But by the time I listened to it, he had moved on.
Right.
And it was a dead end. And I was like, I was willing to, get his stuff, maybe be a client. Oh, well.
Right.
So you want to make sure that your call to action is permanent, and it should be something that you own.
Right. So, folks, if you don't know it, you can go out and there is lots of domain places that you can buy domains from. I personally like namecheap.com. It's an easy place to go and buy your domain for anywhere from $6 to $20 a year, and you can own that domain. One of the things I would do, if you're a grandparent and you have a grandbaby, buy their domain. If it's available, buy their domain so that they can have it growing up. All of my kids have their own domains, and they can do whatever they want with it, right? And it's cheap. It's cheap to have a domain for 30 years. I've got one that's edfox. Edify, EDIFIY, edify.vip. And I'm going to build that into something that edifies people like Joe that come on to different podcasts that I really think have a message to give the rest of the world. So don't hesitate to buy your domain, like Joe says, something that you own, that you can send people to. And as long as you keep paying that $10 a year, $20 a year for that domain, stay away from GoDaddy, stay away from the big guys that want a bunch of money to host. Unless, of course, GoDaddy starts paying us a bunch of money to say otherwise. But no.
That's right.
Just being honest here.
I love the suggestion to buy your kid's domain, to get your kid's domain. I did that for my children.
Right.
I was too late for myself. Somebody already had my name as a .com.
Right.
The musician, he renews it every year. Every year I go on to make sure he renewed it.
Right.
The year that he doesn't renew it, that means it's open, it's free, and I will buy it. Well,
how many URLs? How many URLs do you reckon you own, Joe?
About 25.
Okay. Yeah, I'm about there too.
Yeah. So it's not a lot. It's not a little. I guess that depends on who you talk to.
Right. I've got a friend down in Florida that's got 1,800 URLs. And I said, dude, that even at $10 a pop, that's 1,800 a year. He says, or is it, no, 18, or whatever it is, math. It's not my strong suit. Anyway, you can figure that out at $10 a pop. But what he said is he sells 1 or 2 a year that pay for everything else to be renewed. So he just got ones that he thinks are important. So for me, like I bought Nashville2.com because one of my podcasts is Nashville 2. You're Nashville 2. Let's tell your story. Right. Okay. And I went on there and Nashville2.com was available. I mean, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's amazing what you can find that's available.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. edfox.me. A lot of people don't like the .me extension, but it's me. It's my name. So edfox.me. Great. Edify.vip, like I said. So I was just messing around with some of the cheap ones, like $6, $7, and see if they work, and they do. So you can get on there and you can find something that works. Don't make it 4 miles long, people. Just, hey, talk to Joe, talk to me, reach out to us. We can clue you in on some of the things that we've done. Or, Google's your friend too, right, Joe?
Right. I mean, that's key. And you want to keep it short. I own a domain called myhealthisimportant.com. It's for sale.
Right.
Maybe we'll sell it. I own another one, Dixon Football. I used to do some work for a Dixon football club. And when they decided to use someone else, they didn't want the domain. So I kept it. That's fine.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. So eventually I'll put that one for sale also. But, a lot of the domains that I have are just vanity domains.
Right.
They're not going to be worth anything.
Yeah. Yeah. And they serve a purpose for you if you ever want to build them out. But that's why people start businesses and then they go looking for the domain and the domain's not available. So they get something weird. It doesn't make any sense. Right. Anyway, we could talk about all day about domains and all the fun stuff we've got there. So getting back to your success in podcasting, one of the things that you and I both know is people start podcasts for different reasons. Yes. Right. My Nashville 2 podcast was I wanted to meet people in the Nashville community and tell their story, but also have them know who I am, right? And so it was an easy way to call up people in Nashville and say, hey, I'm doing a podcast. I'd love for you to come on the podcast and talk about what your business is, what your mentoring thing is, what your nonprofit is, what your church is. What are you doing? What are you doing that you need to tell people about? And they're like, oh, I've never done that before. Okay, well, we'll learn together. And I started in my networking group, right? Because it was
Mhm.
easy to interview people in your networking group. And that's an easy way to get started. But for me, it was just, I wanted to learn about people in the community and I wanted them to learn about me.
Yeah, that's great. And I use this podcast for the same reason. Started promoting local businesses, and my objective was to promote local businesses so that I could meet them and they could meet me. And it was a way of giving back to the community. And then local became anywhere my interviewee lived. So
Right.
local became Canada, Australia, England, wherever they were.
Well, I
And
think
we
that's how
started,
we got hooked up is I came on your show on your jam sessions and I was in Nashville, I think at the time. I still am in Nashville, but I think it started there.
yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I forget where we met. It must have been some networking group or something.
Right. Yeah. Like Sue's mastermind, like on a Friday morning or something. We were connected
Right.
through Paul somehow, and then you came on to ours as well.
Yep.
But so talk a little bit more about your course. Is this like a virtual course, or is it just classwork that they can take online, or do they get to meet with you over Zoom? How does that all work?
So the pilot was the reason for the pilot was to figure things out. First thing to figure out was, is this attractive to people? Will they actually pay money for a course on how to be better guests and get more ROI for their guesting activities? So I found out they would. People would pay for that. And I actually wrote the course week by week. And it has videos, there's videos and there's coursework, but we met every week to talk about that week's lesson.
Virtually,
So
right?
virtually, right. We
Yes.
met online and it was for an hour and I would field their questions because they got the learning through the written chapter, through the video and through the coursework. And then we would just talk about it. Like, where are you stuck? What do you need help with? Do you want me to review anything? And they were just great sessions, right? So that's called a hybrid course, Ed,
Right.
in my world, because it's part online, it's part do it yourself. And then we get together and talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
As opposed to a DIY course that would just be videos and coursework that you would do on your own at your own pace.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So eventually here's the plan and what I'm excited about. I'm putting together the book right now. I've got 8 chapters, which were the 8 lessons and that we met once a week. So each lesson is a chapter. And I'm putting that together along with a workbook. So that'll be available for the cost of what a normal book would cost. And then there'll be a DIY course that you can take at your own pace. No interaction. You
Right.
just follow the course.
Right.
And there's a lot of those out there. The premium level then would be a course with personal coaching and group coaching.
Okay.
So there'll be 3 levels.
So
It's
folks,
all the whole idea of the course is so that the person interested in integrating podcast guesting into their marketing strategy can learn how to do that and do it on their own.
right, without
You
having
can,
to pay somebody to teach them or to book them. They can. It's pretty, like you said, if you know the steps and you follow the steps, it's pretty easy to do.
right. And I've talked with who I would call speaking agents, and the speaking agents will get you on stages, physical stages, or get you on podcasts, and they charge money for that, and they do a good job. And that's the right path for some people.
Right.
For some people, they don't want to do all that background work and research and reach out to the podcast host and communicate with they want to say, set me up, tell me what time to be there, and I'll be there. And that's fine. For those folks, a course like mine would be helpful, but more helpful would be getting to an agency either before or instead of,
Yeah.
or after doing my course. Yeah. So it's interesting. You could go either way. And there are agencies that are very expensive. There are agencies that pay as you go. You pay for each booking. There are agencies that you pay $1,000, $2,000 a month for.
So what are some of the types of podcasts as you've put this together? This has come together because you've been doing your own podcasting. You talk to a lot of podcasters. You talk to a lot of business owners and entrepreneurs. I think there's a distinct difference there between a business owner and an entrepreneur. Just saying, that's a whole other podcast. But what are some of the ways that you've seen podcasts used, like you and I talked about, using it to meet other business owners in our territories? But what else have you seen?
As far as podcasts are concerned, so there are individual podcasts where it's always the podcast owner or podcast host speaking, no interviews. They're just there to speak and promote their ideas and talk about what they do.
Pontificating. I think I could pontificate a bit.
Pontificating, yes. Pontificating podcast. Yeah. So that's one type. Another type I've seen are panel podcasts where you might have 3 people or 4 people and you get together and talk about a subject, and it's a round robin. It's almost like a mastermind session in that case.
Yeah.
Another type of podcast is the coaching podcast. Now, Donald Miller does, he's the Story Brand guy.
Okay.
Donald Miller does a number of coaching podcasts on a regular basis where he will have a guest and basically say, what's going on in your business and how are we going to make it better today? And he has a series of questions, and then he helps them with an area of their business. That's a great style of podcast because it does show his expertise and allows him to shine as an authority.
Right. Yeah, and I could see that. And you've just given me an idea for one for myself. I'm thinking maybe a barter bloke one where we teach people how they can barter in their business to generate more revenues.
Oh, that would be great. I mean, so you take in a guy, who has a business, and maybe what he does is he cleans roofs and he straightens up roofs, and get him on there and talk with him about ideas on how he can barter, who would be good barter partners for him. And a lot of people then, even though they don't clean roofs, they have a different service business, perhaps, they could identify with that and pick up some ideas and maybe even get in touch with you to learn how to barter better. Because
exactly.
That guy.
Yeah. So I think sometimes, do you find that people limit themselves by not allowing their major muscle to bring forth those ideas? They sort of nip them in the bud. I find that all the time where people go, oh, that's a stupid idea. Well, what's your idea? Write it down. Write down your idea before you edit it, right? So I'm a big fan of writing it down in its truest form before you start editing it in your head. And it might be a crappy idea, but you don't know until you get it down on paper and then look at it from all directions.
I think there are a lot of ideas that are nipped in the bud because people will look at the negative side. What if? How would I get over that obstacle? And they just nip it in the bud. How many people don't climb Mount Kilimanjaro because they see it as being too difficult? And hey, if you can walk, you can climb Kilimanjaro.
Right. Wow.
Now that's a powerful statement, and maybe not 100% true, Ed, but I would say that's 95% true, because climbing Mount Kilimanjaro, you don't need ropes. You're not going to be spelunking. You're not going to be climbing ice walls. It's basically a long walk every day. You wake up in the morning and you say, what are we going to do today? I don't know. Let's walk a little bit for a few hours. And, and that's what we did for 9 days. But a lot of people wouldn't even think to do that. And the experience is amazing. Absolutely amazing.
And that's what I think about the entrepreneurial journey, right?
Yes.
I think that it's an amazing event in your life if you want to take that first step and that second step and that third step. And so many people I talk to, they're afraid to get started. Right. They're afraid. What if I do it and it doesn't work? So I have this silly thing that I tell them. I say, look, if you have $100 and you can start a business for $100, then do it. Only if that $100, if it doesn't work, isn't going to hurt you. Right? If it's your last $100 and you should be buying formula for your baby, then you need to go buy formula for your baby. But if it's $100 that you maybe spend on food or alcohol or entertainment, that you could bypass some of those Starbucks $9 coffees and spend this $100 on starting a business that could become worth thousands, then
Or more.
or more, it's worth spending that $100. If, however, it needs $1 million to build solar farms all over Western Kansas, and that's your great idea, that's not something you can do today. You need to write it down until you either find the people with the money or until you have the money. Now, if you are asked to invest your life savings into something and it's going to hurt you if that fails, then don't do that. But starting a business with 100, for you or me, back in the day, it was $100 was a lot of money. Now, necessarily, $100 is still a good amount, but it's nothing like the 100,000 or 200,000 or 300,000 or $500,000 you put into businesses these days. You better be prepared to make those businesses work.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah. One of the things I talk about is the dip your toe in the water process.
Right.
Try it out. Your example of the guy who buys a 5-gallon bucket with a lid from Lowe's and goes and puts up some flyers in the neighborhood. Hey, I'll clean up your poop in your fenced in backyard so you don't have to come by once a week for $10. Fantastic. Right? Dip your toe in the water and try it. Now, don't go out and do a national marketing campaign for $25,000.
Right. Yeah.
See if it's going to work. See if it, and those 5-gallon buckets are always useful, even if your business fails. You can always use a 5-gallon bucket for something else.
Exactly.
But try it. And the experience that you'll gain from trying something like that and doing something like that is worth much more than the $30 you'd have to invest to get something like that going. Oh my gosh. I would encourage everyone to do something. Dip your toe in the water. Don't quit your day job, right? Keep that. Putting food on the table, putting a roof over your head, but try something. How many people started copywriting businesses or learned how to do websites, right? Just on the computer that they already own. And today they own an agency.
Yeah. I look at business today and I look at small business ownership specifically with all the social media platforms, with the cheap printing platforms. There has never been a better time for a person to be a startup business entrepreneur.
I agree with you. 100%.
They've got all the tools. When I started my first business, 100 business cards was like $80.
Wow.
To advertise anywhere was thousands of dollars. Other than going door to door handing out flyers, everywhere was thousands of dollars. You could not start a business inexpensively unless you were doing the basic, I'm a kid, I'm going to go mow lawns.
Right.
I'm going to go wash windows. I'm going to go walk dogs. I'm going to go babysit, those sort
shovel
of
snow. My thing was shoveling snow.
Okay. Yeah. I didn't have to do that, but those sort of things. But now for us to start a business on Facebook, to create a Facebook page, to create a website, even a basic website on Wix or any of the other free sites, Google Sites, I think is still around. Is Google Sites still around?
I'm not even sure.
I think so. There's all of these opportunities out there. Do a side hustle. Dig your well before you need it. Right? I always tell people, and people would ask me all the time, well, my business is growing. Can I quit my job? Okay. When you can deposit your paycheck from your job for 6 months and not have to touch it for anything, nothing.
Yep.
When you can deposit it for 6 months, that's when you can decide, am I ready to quit work?
Right.
And it's not going to be the same measurement for everybody, but I think for a lot of us, that's a good measurement. If you're making a good living in a corporation, let's say you're making 10,000 a year, 20,000 a year, 50,000, whatever that level is for you, 100,000 a year, 500,000 a year, whatever that level is for you, and you're living on that well, if you bank 6 months of it and don't touch it, means that your business is probably doing okay.
Probably doing okay. Yeah. And that's right. That's the time to ask the question, do I still need that job?
Right.
Do I still need to go to that job? Yeah. And that's why, you start part-time, right? Start with something easy and start with something you're passionate about. Start with something you could talk about and would love to talk about and read about and learn and listen to podcasts about.
Right.
Something that excites you. If it doesn't, you're going to be filling your head with all that stuff. filling your head and putting it out there, you've got to be passionate about it. It's got to be something you love to do.
Right. I was talking to some guys the other day that manage over $1.2 billion, I think is what they said. And then I was talking to another guy that wrote a book called, I was looking around for it, called Money Does Grow on Trees. His name, local guy, Jeremy Newsom, him and his dad invested in Apple stock back in the day when they were watching Forrest Gump. And Forrest Gump says, when Uncle Dan, Lieutenant Dan invested in this fruit company. And I told my, and Forrest Gump says that. And then the kid says, Dad, I want to invest in the fruit company. And he goes out and he sells blackberries by the Ziploc till he raised $1,500 and gave his dad $1,500 and said, let's go buy some stock. His dad matched it. They bought $3,000 worth of Apple stock and sold it when it hit $12,000. Mm-hmm. And the kid was so excited, right? And he's gone on to be multimillionaire. But in this book, he talks about, he says, want to know the secret to investing? Invest in things that you use or businesses that you go to all the time. So if you're a Chipotle guy and you always eat at Chipotle and you love what they do, then maybe investing in Chipotle. Now, I'm not saying invest in Chipotle. I'm just saying that as an example. Me, I've never eaten there. I don't know what it's like. I have no clue. But I do occasionally go to Starbucks, but I probably wouldn't invest in Starbucks. I would probably invest in something like where I shop all the time. Mm-hmm. I seem to be always in a Dollar Tree. If that had a stock, I would probably be thinking about buying Dollar Tree stock, because he says, if you are always using it, then you know when they're doing good, when they're doing bad, when things are good, when things are bad. That might be a good way to invest your dollars. And that's what these fund managers said too. That's what we always tell my family and friends is invest in places that you shop. Well, that's the same thing you're saying about own a business that you're passionate about. Do something that you're passionate about. So you know how it's meant to go. You've seen other people do similar things, whether it be baking cookies or making floral arrangements. I've got a friend that started doing bridal bouquets and wedding flowers where she'd put it in resin and arrange it in resin that lasts forever. Wow.
Yeah.
It's a great idea, and virtually nobody's doing it. And the margins are fantastic, right? Which is always important. Well, it is to me anyway, is having good margins.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I started a number of businesses just on the fly. When I moved back to Italy after being in Brazil for 9 years, I was ready to get out of what I was doing. I thought everybody knew what I was teaching. Well, I learned they didn't. But anyway, I got into something different, and I eventually started a language school.
Okay.
And now my language school started with me as a teacher, but I never thought of myself as a teacher. I thought of myself as the owner of a language school. And the way that started is I took 8.5 by 11 sheets of paper and I wrote, if you want to learn English, call Joe. And I hung them up in businesses around town. And that's how it started.
Did you write in Italian or English or both?
I wrote in both. Yep. And it went very well. And then I made the brochure and I approached companies. And then I ran out of time and I hired people to teach, and I taught them how to teach. So we had a system of how to do that. And I eventually had 7 people working for me.
Wow. And that was started on the fly.
It started on the fly. Right. Somebody said, why don't you teach English? I said, well, I could do that. Why don't I try it? Yeah, it went great. I also, with some friends, because in Italy's a peninsula with beautiful weather during the summertime. Nobody wants to be in school and learning during the summertime. So some buddies and I, we started a mountain bike tourism business. Now, my friend was very well connected in town, and he went around and got sponsorships for, I think we made like 10,000 brochures. He got enough sponsorships that we could buy 9 mountain bikes.
Oh, wow.
He already had a van for his business. So we used that van. We had 9 mountain bikes, and we put flyers in all the hotels. Where I lived was a pretty much a tourist destination. We put flyers in all the hotels, and we would take people to the mountains for a day out of town, out of the beach, off the beach, in the mountains, and give them a great time. So we took families and couples. I mean, it was a blast, Ed.
Right.
It was a blast.
And did you have all your I's dotted and all your T's crossed before you started those businesses?
No, no, not at all.
My dad says there's three frogs sitting on a log. They all decided to jump off. How many were left?
Yeah, exactly.
All
Three.
three, because they didn't take any action, right? They didn't take
Right.
any action. So it's like my middle child, he always said, we always treated him like if he was traveling from Wichita, Kansas to Disneyland in California, he'd want all the lights to be green before he took off, right?
Okay.
And dude, you can't have all the lights be green before you take off, right? And then me, I'm like, oh, let's jump out of a plane. Oh, where's the parachute? I forgot. Oh, no, sorry. Let's jump out of a plane. Jump. Oh, where's the parachute? Oh, we'll make one on the way down. Don't worry about it. You know, and so my wife drives her crazy with that idea, but that has been the way I do things, you know.
Mhm.
And if it's not going to kill you, why not learn on the way, right?
Yeah, you learn on the fly. Now, I had experience before starting the language school. I had experience in business. I ran a company in Brazil.
Right.
So I knew a little bit about what I was doing, but I didn't know anything about teaching English.
Right.
I actually learned English grammar when I had the language school. When I went to college, Ed, I had to go to remedial English classes. Like they wouldn't even let me in freshman English classes in college because I did so poorly on the test.
Right.
And, 10, 15 years later, I owned a language school.
Right. Yeah, I learned more about Australia moving to America and answering questions about Australia all the time than I ever did about learning about Australia in school in Australia. Or
Wow.
just living growing up in Australia. I had to learn more. Well, how many teeth does a crocodile have? That was the favorite question of kindergartners when I went to schools and talked about. I said, I don't know. I never get close enough to look at their smile. And they always thought that was funny, But little things that you learn, right? By answering questions about the business or doing things with the business, you learn more about what you do. Okay, so we've taken up 45 minutes. I've got a couple of questions over here that my daughter said, these would be good questions, Dad. You should ask these. So during a major struggle that you had, right? Think about a struggle that you've had in life. What is something that you've done during that time that you were proud of? That's a lot to unpack, isn't it?
That's a lot to unpack. I stepped back. I stepped back so that I could gain perspective. And I talked with people whose opinions I valued, who I knew would not be trying to sell me on their agenda.
Right.
Before making a decision, I had to step back. I mean,
so you took a breath, you took time, you were struggling, you step back and you go, okay, well, let's evaluate this. Let's get some feedback from people that I trust that don't have a hidden agenda for me, and then make a decision as I move forward. So in other words, you were running in a direction, you paused to look at the other opportunities.
Things were going so bad. And I remember this phrase. It said, you don't make decisions in the valley because you don't have perspective. You can't see far away. You've got to get to the top of the mountain where you can see far and see the landscape. And then you know which direction to go. And I was in the valley. And I knew I couldn't make a decision. I couldn't move forward from the valley. I had to get onto a mountain, at least somewhat of a mountain, so I could gain perspective. Yeah.
Right. That's great. And so I take it what you're saying is until you got to that pinnacle, you relied on other people maybe that were in better places to help you or to feed you information?
To reflect back to me, to help me clarify my own thoughts. Yes. And to learn from, but also to help me gain ownership of my own thoughts and gain perspective again.
That's awesome. Cool. Okay. And the next question is, what is your favorite place to travel?
I'm working on that.
Okay.
I've been very fortunate with traveling around the world. My wife and we just bought a little camper that hooks up to the back of our car, and we are looking forward to adventure. So right now, my favorite place to travel is campgrounds. That sounds really weird, right?
AOAs.
where we can hook that thing up and with our dogs, and we love taking hikes and walking. So in the woods, a campground in the woods where there's hiking trails. They're my favorite place to
Cool.
travel right now.
Okay. And you said your why. I was going to ask you why next. Okay. I'm a bit of a dad joker. I love a good dad joke. Do you have a favorite?
I guess I do, and it's one that I heard recently. And Ed, I got fired from the orange juice factory recently. They said I couldn't concentrate.
Yeah, I do like those. I did a whole series of I got fired from,
Okay.
and then I quit my job crushing pop cans the other day. It was so depressing.
Yeah, great.
Yeah. And so I love that sort of stuff, just the twist. But the one I heard this morning was and now it's gone, of course. Yep, it's totally gone. Oh, no. What do you call a baby owl that had a bath?
A baby what?
Owl. Hoot, hoot, owl, OWL.
I have no idea.
A moist owlet.
It's great.
I thought that was pretty good. I don't like the word moist, so I probably won't tell that very often, but I like that. Okay, so Joe, how do people find you and get a hold of you? Gapologist.com, right?
That's right. That's the place to go. Yeah.
Okay.
And there's a lot of resources there. There will be more.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Okay.
there's
So
some
it's
exciting
giving me
things coming up. I'm sorry?
it's giving me a 5-minute wrap up. So we've got 5 minutes. Anything that we didn't cover in this time that you would have liked to have gone over?
Yeah. So one of the things that I'm working on, and I've tested this out with a few people, and I've told them this is an idea I'm thinking of doing. What do you think? And that is creating a community of business owners and want to be business owners where we can share resources, where we can learn, where we can have access to mini courses, where we can trade micro collaborations.
Right.
Now, what's a micro collaboration? It's I like you, Ed. So I'll write you a review on LinkedIn. Could you write a review for my podcast?
Right.
And that's a micro collaboration. And a few of those, 10 or 20, 30, 40, 50 of those, and I get a lot of reviews and I help people along the way.
Right.
So it's a community of people who want to learn, who want to move ahead. If you have a business or you want to start a business, there'll be resources for everyone who is in business. Go ahead.
This is going to be on a non-social media so that you can control the ownership, right? Because social media can kick us off at any time. People don't realize that, but you don't own your Facebook page. Facebook owns your Facebook page, or Meta.
Exactly.
So you're going to do a group through a third party that you're paying for to host that group, and that we will be able to attend. Is there going to be a cost?
There's going to be, what it's going to be, Ed, is a freemium.
Okay.
Do you know freemium?
Yep.
So it's free, but there will be premium access to some things that will cost money.
Right. Yeah. Got it. So you can take that person that's just starting out. They don't think they have a budget for anything. They don't understand what the value is going to be, and they can jump in along with the rest of us. Do those micro collaborations, help each other out, build that. The thing I love about having an entrepreneurial community these days, just like with my BNI networking group, right, is you see other people going on the journey. And it used to be that you would by yourself, unless you bought a franchise, right? But if you didn't buy a franchise, you would by yourself, and you didn't have a clue some days on how to handle a particular customer problem or how to handle something that's cropped up. And now with these communities that are popping up, when we get a good one and we get around good entrepreneurs, good business owners, there's so much value. It's sort of like a mastermind group on steroids.
There really is. I mean, have you ever written a letter and you're thinking, I just don't know if that's right. I don't know if I'm communicating what I want to communicate. And you wish you had someone you could talk to about that letter.
Right.
And that's community. That's part of what this community is going to be. So I have some people I talk to and I say, I'm thinking of this. Am I crazy or am I on track? And they'll say, Joe, let's talk about it.
Right.
And then we'll figure it out. So you can be in business for yourself, but not by yourself.
Right.
And
Yeah,
there's
that's exactly.
just, and some people just like helping. I know you're one of those people, Ed. You like to contribute. You have a lot of experience, and you like to share that with folks who are on the journey, but maybe not as far along as you are in certain aspects, certain
Right.
parts of that journey. And you love to help them. And so do I. And there's a lot of people like us out there.
Right. And we can help them at different levels, right? For me, I say I can build $1 million business. That's not hard. Can I build a $5 million business? I probably can, but I haven't done it yet because I lose interest, right? I'm on to the next thing. So I like building $1 million businesses. So for somebody that's got a business that they want to build it to $1 million, I can help them get there. But people that want to build it to 5 million, 10 million, 20 million, they're going to need different mentors than me.
Sure.
Right.
Exactly.
And knowing where that community is that they can reach out to, that's important. So I know what I'm good at. I know what I'm not good at. Details. You want details? You want I's and T's crossed and dotted and stuff? Go talk to Joe. He is brilliant at that sort of stuff. Me, I'm seat of the pants guy. I have outside of the box marketing thinking that it's just awesome. Like we have a lot of fun with it, right? So understanding having both of us in a community would make it a great way for you to get that information that you need. Not that I'm insinuating that I'm part of this community. I'm not yet. Haven't got the invite, but we'll see. Just saying.
That's right. And if this is something that might be interesting to you, go to gapologist.com, download one of the free resources there, and you'll be on the mailing list. And I'm not going to blast emails every day to you, but you'll be able to keep up to date with what's going on with this community and with what's going on with the other courses that are available.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, hey, Joe, it's been great catching up with you. Thanks for being on the show. I was a little concerned that we wouldn't have enough stuff to cover, but we probably could do 3 more of these and still not run out of things to talk about.
I bet we could. Yeah, it's great, Ed. And thank you for inviting me on your show.
Yes, I'm looking forward to catching up with you again. I think I put in a request to see if you've got a gap in the Gapologist schedule down the road. So shoot me over your contact information and everything that we want to put in the show notes, and we'll get it out.
Perfect.
Awesome.
Excellent.
Have a good day.
Thank you again. You too.
Good day again. Well, that's it for the show. Hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to like us, subscribe, follow, write a 5-star review, all the good stuff. Thanks a lot for listening, and look forward to having you listen to the next one.